Amen. Y'all can have a seat. Our kids can head on back. Well, let me say a special word of welcome to our guests tonight, especially our first-time guests. My name is Daniel. I get to be the pastor of this community, that we are celebrating 2 years of ministry. I was mentioning to someone before the service that when we launched 2 years ago, February 15th of 2018, one of my main goals was to make it 6 weeks. I wish that I was lying. That was a goal, and so now it's just so encouraging and exciting to see that all God has done in and through us these past 2 years, and now to have a packed house, it's just a testament to God's goodness in our community. So if you're a first-timer, we're so thankful that you are with us. You have joined us in week 2 of a message series that's a little bit different than anything that we have ever done. So we went really hard and really in-depth in the month of January talking about God's vision for your life, God's vision for our church. And so in the month of February, we've intentionally taken a step to make things a little bit more lighthearted and done these conversations that we're calling the gospel according to. And the idea is to take members of our church family to hear their story and to hear about how they're living out their career as a calling. And so more and more people I talk to in all stages of life, in high school, in college, young adults, older adults, and even retired folks, we wrestle with this question of what is my calling? What is God calling me to do? And so I could stand up and talk to I'm blue in the face about living out your faith in your career, but I think a much better teacher is someone who is actually doing it outside of the church. And so we are so blessed tonight to have with us a power couple, if there ever was one, Jerald and Hayley Huggins. They have been faithful members of our church for quite some time. Jerald hails from the big East Texas town of Pineland or Pineland? Pineland, altogether. About 1,000 people in Pineland, and Jerald is one of them. Jerald came off to Texas A&M. He's a member of the class of 1997, where he studied agricultural systems management. During his time at A&M, he worked as, I think, probably the coolest job you may have ever had, as an apprentice meat cutter at the Apple Tree Market over on Harvey Road. Does anybody remember that place? And then his senior year, he picked up a part-time job at Chick-fil-A. 24 years later, Jerald and Hayley are now the owners and operators of the 3 freestanding Chick-fil-A's here in town. Hayley, if you think Jerald's impressive, the real power broker in this couple is Hayley. Hayley is a 1996 graduate of the United States Air Force Academy. She then graduated and went on to serve our country for 6 years, mainly working on maintenance on F-16s, is that right? And then after those 6 years, Hayley went into the corporate world. And guess where she got her start in the corporate world? Chick-fil-A in the greater Atlanta area. She worked there as a director and a coordinator of grand openings, so that has helped her a lot in helping Jerald to open 3. Hayley is now a physical education teacher at Brazos Christian School. So she's been in all sorts of areas in her career, and we're excited to hear about that. They are the proud parents of John, who is, are you 8 now, John? John is one of the most respectful and biblically literate children you will ever meet in your life. If it's not a testament to who these kind of people are based on the Chick-fil-A's, let me just ask this. Who has eaten at one of the Chick-fil-A's in College Station this week? Tonight? So John was back there holding up multiple fingers. They are incredible, and we are so excited to hear their story. So would you join me in welcoming Jerald and Hayley Huggins? Come on up, guys. All right. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. I'm higher. This is the only time I've ever been taller than you, Jerald. It feels good. Thank you for being here.
It's our pleasure.
That was good. So, Jerald, you might actually know this, but you were actually, so last week, as part of the series, we interviewed Max Crawford, a KBTX meteorologist. Did you know that you were once Max Crawford's boss?
I actually watched part of the video, and I thought, it sounds familiar, but it's been a long time, so... All
right, so I started with Max with the same question, the most important question of the evening. I'll start with you, Jerald. Besides your wife, who is the most famous person in your cell phone?
Dat Nguyen.
That's pretty cool.
He owns a Chick-fil-A in Fort Worth.
Okay. Hayley, can you beat that?
Jerald Huggins.
How sweet. All right, next important question. One superpower. You only get one. What is your superpower?
I think I would want to teleport.
Where would you teleport to first?
Doesn't matter. I can get there like whenever I want to.
Haley? I know Max said flying, so that kind of like
that's
stole
a low-hanging
it.
fruit.
It is low-hanging fruit. I want to do something really unique, like walk through walls.
Oh.
Surprise!
Jesus did that, yeah. Jesus and the Kool-Aid Man, I think the only two people in history to walk through walls. So let's just start by kind of telling us, I mentioned that you started working, Jerald, for Chick-fil-A in college, and Hayley, you started kind of later on in your career. Kind of give us a version of your Chick-fil-A story. How did you come to fall in love with the organization and now really devote your career to it?
So yes, I was an apprentice meat cutter, and I was a senior at A&M, and as lots of seniors at A&M are trying to find out what they're supposed to do. And
who would say you're a junior or senior at A&M trying to figure out what you want to do? Okay, there's a few of us.
So I was in that boat, and I had friends that worked at Chick-fil-A, and I thought, I could have Sundays off, and that literally was the selling point for me to go to Chick-fil-A. I mean, I took like a $2 pay cut to work in the kitchen, and I think I made like $5.25 an hour versus I think I made like $7.50 or something. Back in the 90s, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
So, so I did that, and really it was to just finish school so I could decide what I was going to do when I graduated in the following year in 1997. And as I did it, I just fell in love with what I was doing, partially because I liked to work with machines and work with processes, but also you got to see, the fruits of what you did as making food and also helping people along the way. So it kind of was a good fit. And then I worked for Mr. Hall, who retired in 2018. He had the Briarcrest location, and that's where I started working. And he encouraged me to go to some leadership management training classes with Chick-fil-A that the Chick-fil-A Corporation would sponsor. So I did those the summer before I graduated, and fell in love with Chick-fil-A even more, and that was kind of when I made the decision of, hey, I want to pursue Chick-fil-A, and it was a long pursuit to become an owner, a franchisee, because that didn't happen until 2001. I was selected, and then 2002 is when I opened a restaurant in Houston, and I had that freestanding restaurant for 6 years, and then relocated back to College Station in 2008, and then we had the Texas Avenue location open. And then subsequently after, we've had 2 additional restaurants.
Yeah, that's great. So Hayley, coming out of Air Force, what was it about Chick-fil-A that kind of drew you in?
Well, I was thinking about getting out of the Air Force in August of 2001. And so was interviewing with a lot of different companies. The Air Force is great to provide resources for that. And then September 11th happened, and I was not allowed to leave the Air Force at that point. And so there were 2 companies that said, we'll hang with you until then. One was Floor and Ceiling Company, where I would have lived in Milwaukee. I'm from Georgia. Milwaukee, not so much. And then Chick-fil-A. So Chick-fil-A graciously hung with me through the months that it took to fulfill my obligation, and then they waited for me, and then I went.
And then, obviously, you two met somehow through Chick-fil-A, is that right?
We did. So my first job at Chick-fil-A was a business consultant, and I traveled every week and worked with operators in lots of different parts of the country and helped them grow their business. I did not consult Jerald previous to the marriage.
Okay, that's good. You have to say that for legal purposes,
Correct.
right? Okay,
So I'm obligated.
I have a free consultant.
It's free.
Yeah.
I'm free.
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 Extra
Shame
one.
free, yeah.
And then in Chick-fil-A's generosity, when we married, they weren't ready to have a corporate employee not in Atlanta. And so they let me do the grand opening thing where I traveled and taught people how to train new kids to bread chicken and serve customers.
Love it. So I know that one of the big things about Chick-fil-A is that, you would say it's about much more than the chicken sandwich. So can either or both of you recite the mission statement, the corporate mission statement?
The corporate purpose?
Corporate purpose, yeah.
To glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's entrusted to us and to have a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A.
I love that. Yeah.
Now, she can break it down a little bit. So.
Hey, no, yeah, Hayley, and I've heard you do this. Break that down a little bit. Talk about, because, that's the heartbeat of everything, and chicken's not even mentioned, right? Okay, so talk a little bit about that.
So our corporate purpose is very special because it came along during a time when Chick-fil-A was really struggling. We're still in the malls, and our operators were really struggling financially, and the Kathy family took a little went to a retreat, and they came up with the corporate purpose, said, what are we really about? And they decided first that in all things, the filter needs to be to glorify God. And so that's what's first. And being a faithful steward is more than just, hey, are we using the right buns? That's for you. Are we?
Gary sells buns. That's what
right.
that was.
Are our operators making enough money? No. Stewardship goes a lot further than that. For Chick-fil-A, it's about how we're caring for our guests, how we're caring for our team members, how we're caring for each other. And it's all that's entrusted. So it's more than chicken and fries.
And I love that because even in the wording there, right, you did not say customers and you did not say employees. And that's so important because that changes the perspective. When somebody walks in, they're a guest. And when somebody's hired, they're, what was the language you used?
A team member.
A team member. I love that. So talk, Jerald, I'd love to hear from you. Been doing this 24 years now, right? You kind of, could you say you fell into Chick-fil-A, right, getting Sundays off? When did you realize that God was calling you to stick with this company? When did you realize that this was your calling?
I mean, that would have to be when I was a team member working for Mr. Hall. It kind of felt nice knowing that, hey, there's opportunity, but it really wasn't about money because, I didn't really make a lot of money. And it was about, hey, I can do something where I can enjoy my work, but also hopefully help other people. And you have to have some of the business acumen to do this job, but at the same time, you've got to want to help others and help provide for people and help make decisions that could help other people's lives.
Yeah, and I think that's so encouraging because I talk to a lot of people in sort of entry-level positions like you were in, and even beyond that, more than part-time, even the full-time. I think it's encouraging to say, hey, if you're in that position, keep at it, keep grinding, because God may be using that, even if not with that company, to help you find your purpose, to help you find your calling. Hayley, you've kind of made 3 major career changes in 3 very different sectors, going from military to civilian corporate to now working as a teacher at a Christian private school. Talk a little bit about somebody, there may be someone here tonight who's starting to ask the question, is it time for a change? Is it time for a career change? Is it time for a location change? What were some of those markers for you? And I didn't send you this question, so I'm asking you on the spot. What were some of those markers for you in either or both of those changes that you knew God was leading you in a new direction?
Well, until you just asked this question, it didn't occur to me. But the Lord spoke to me very clearly 2 times in my life. One was when he said, no, this is who I have for you. It means you have to leave Georgia and go to Texas, but this is what I have. And the second time was when when I got a random phone call that was a mistake from Brazos Christian School saying, you have experience as a math professor. Where's Hayden? And yeah, right there. I didn't have any experience as a math professor.
Hayden's a former student, is that right?
Yeah, yes, it's a former student, Tyler. But both of those times, there was no question that had to be from the Lord. So I wasn't unhappy doing what I was doing, but he made it clear that this this is a gift too. This is obedience. This is not obedience. So you choose this way, and you get my blessing. If you go this way, I'm not going to bless you. But he just made it very clear.
I love that because, I mean, in every choice we have that. We have the choice to not act in obedience. And God can still work in that, but we have the choice to act in obedience, and that's where God's blessing is. Talk to me, and either or both of you, about a difficult season that you've maybe had. I know that I just was kind of with y'all through opening up this third store, this third restaurant, and you are one of how many in the country to own more than two?
It's probably maybe 25 or 30 of us.
So a very small number of people are on the caliber, and this was a huge venture, and I got the pleasure of being at that opening and seeing just that entire restaurant be prayed over. There's scriptures on the posts. I mean, just it is covered in prayer way before it is covered in chicken and guests. But we drive through, and we get to drive through. Jerald was also he's kind of the pioneer of the drive-through system. If you've ever rolled up here on Highway 6 and it's way backed up, and then 4 minutes later you are driving off with chicken, this is the man to thank. So we see all that. We see all the goodness. We see the happiness. We see the smiles and the my pleasure, but I'm sure it wasn't always like that. So talk to us a little bit about maybe a difficult season and how the Lord guided you through it. Hayley, you want to?
It's not business related.
That's fine.
So we didn't marry till we were 35, and then the Lord blessed us with John. So he was born when I was 37. But then we
Which
tried.
makes you 29 now, if my math is right.
28.
28, sorry.
28, come on. But the season that came after that, we kind of thought, oh, okay, we have our plan. This is what's going to happen, and we're going to have a house full of kids, even though I was old to have kids. But we didn't. We have one. And I struggled, really didn't understand what the Lord was doing and why this wasn't happening, and aren't we doing what you want us to do, Lord? But he gave me the number 3. And it wasn't audible, but it was one day I was reading, and I kept reading these 3 in the word, 3. So I thought, 3 kids, that's it. Twins, that's next. But one day I was at work and came home late, and John was in the driveway, and I pulled in, and I just felt like this is our 3. So at that point, we stopped all that we were doing and just accepted the wonderful gift that the Lord had given us and each other. So
I would say that the getting a third restaurant is difficult. Mm-hmm. But before you have 3, you have 2, mm-hmm. and Chick-fil-A doesn't hand them out, mm-hmm. and so even though I felt confident in my ability, it was a difficult season to make that happen, mm-hmm. because you do multiple interviews and multiple visits from the corporate staff, and directors and consultants visit you and go through the process, and I literally had to resign to the fact that, hey, if I don't get 3, my life is okay. It was, because you get so caught up in what you think you want, and I was literally satisfied with, hey, if we don't get another, it's okay. Yeah. Our life is great. We can still do great things for people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's encouraging. No matter what kind of change we're wanting to go through, that we can go to places where we really dream of something big, but if God, doesn't give us that opportunity, being able to be used in the moment is what God calls us to do. Jerald, talk to me do you have a life verse or a Bible story or a Bible character or a Bible verse that you really lean on as you conduct your business?
Truett Cathy, his kind of like his of Proverbs 22, is 22:1? Is that right? Yes, 22:1. A great name is more valuable than great riches, basically.
Yeah.
A good name is more valuable than.
I love that. So let's press in on that. What I love about the two of you is that your purpose and your calling is much more than making money, right? Because it would be, I mean, just simple math. I'm not a math guy, but if you were to own a different restaurant that was open on Sundays, right, that means you make a seventh more money. Is that kind of how math works? Something like that. A sixth more? That'd be a six more. Okay. Somebody was over there nodding, trying to encourage me. And then Hayley, working at a Christian private school with a huge corporate experience and an incredible resume. So talk a little bit about how you find meaning, how you find purpose outside of those riches and in that name.
Really, it's about the people that work there. One of my goals and passions is to help them succeed. The employees. Mostly for me, my interaction is within the leadership team. So I want to really see them succeed and see them, help provide for their family. And we've got young men and young ladies that have worked for me that have, applied to go work for Chick-fil-A in the future. We've had a couple through college that worked for me that became franchisees. So they're currently franchisees with Chick-fil-A. So it's really cool to see that dream happen for them. Because I was in their shoes, and I want them to feel like, hey, I have an opportunity to do something really cool. Mm-hmm. And Chick-fil-A is really neat about helping partner with people to help them kind of fulfill their dreams a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool to see that I can help them and maybe guide them and influence them to do that. And honestly, if they work for me and they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a business owner, that's awesome.
Meteorologist.
Too. Sure. I mean, we want people to do a great job, but ultimately serve guests and care about each other.
Love that. So kind of wrapping up here, what would you say? Let's put it this way: if you could go back and talk to 21-year-old Jerald, 21-year-old Hayley. Wondering, what does the Lord have for me in my career? Where am I going? How do I discover my calling? What would be, because we have a lot of people in that camp that are here tonight that aren't just 21, but are 31 and 41 and 51 and 61 even, wondering, what does God have for me? What advice would you give to that person struggling to know, what is my calling?
I think for me, the word that comes to my mind is patience. Just realizing that you don't have to have the answer literally today. It's okay that, try to enjoy what you're doing if you feel like you're, a good fit for whatever job that is. I would encourage young people to, try to enjoy their job, but also find a job or part-time job, career, whatever that is, that you feel like is a fit for you, and be careful not to chase money, because ultimately that's probably not going to make somebody happy. And it's you've got to find a way to enjoy what you do, but also have purpose in what you're doing on a daily basis.
Yeah, I love that. I think it was Jim Carrey that said, "I wish everybody could get rich and famous so that they could realize it's not the answer." Yeah, Hayley, what would you say to that person in the boat?
One real practical thing I would say is get a mentor, and not a mentor that is somebody that's going to say, "Hey, great job, keep doing what you're doing." That's going to point you to the Lord over and over and over again. And I'm thinking like 10 years older than you, because the Lord, He is on the throne. And in our ups and downs and failures and successes, He's still in charge. He's still sovereign. And if we are seeking Him first, He will direct our steps. He will. And so that is what I would say to 21-year-old Hayley.
So good. Jerald and Hayley, thank you all so much. Can we thank them together? Thank you. So I wanted to kind of on the back end here kind of wrap up our conversation a little bit. Passage that as I thought about Jerald and Hayley, and as I was hoping the discussion would go in the way that it did. Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 21 says this: "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." I think if we can learn anything from Chick-fil-A, from Jerald and Hayley, it's this: don't chase after a product, but chase after your passion. put passion over product. What does that mean? We mentioned a chicken sandwich a couple of times, maybe. But time and time again, what the experts praise about Chick-fil-A and Chick-fil-A people is that it's not about the chicken sandwich. They will admit that they might not have the best chicken sandwich. If you're one of those heathens who believes that Popeyes is better, you can leave now. But what Chick-fil-A does is not about chicken sandwiches. Jerald and Hayley don't have a passion for that. They have a passion for people. There's a man by the name of Tony Hsieh. You might have heard of him. He's the CEO of Zappos. He might not be the CEO anymore. They sold to Amazon like we all will one day. But Todd Hsieh was a billionaire, is a billionaire. And I don't know if he's a believer, but he lives out this passion, this pursuit of passion over product. Tony lives in a little 290 square foot trailer. He sells shoes. He built this huge shoe company. He owns 4 pairs of shoes. He's on record as saying this: I have 0 interest in shoes. If anything, I have a negative interest in shoes and fashion. My outfit is the same every day: a Zappos t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. But here's the deal. The passion and the mission of Zappos is this: delivering happiness to customers, employees, and vendors. It has nothing to do with shoes. It has nothing to do with the product. It has everything to do with the passion. So if you're wrestling with that calling, if you're wrestling with what company do I need to work for, who do I need to become, how do I get to be the top of this boss, forget all that. Ask God, how have you created me? What passion have you given me? And how can I live that passion out and hopefully get a paycheck along the way? That's secondary. And friends, Jesus is the model of this. That the story of the gospel, the story that Chick-fil-A proclaims in chicken sandwiches and how they love and serve their guests, is a story of Jesus. That Jesus has such a passion for you and for me. He had a passion to reconcile the Father's relationship with us. And so Jesus goes to a cross, probably not the way that he wished that he could have reconciled, but he still goes because of his passion for a relationship with you. And so when Jesus reconciles us for our sins, he rises again from the dead. He invites you and he invites me into a relationship with him where you find calling, where you find purpose, where you find meaning, where you find your vocation. You find all of your meaning and life in him. If you're wrestling with your calling, you're in a good place. But the challenge tonight is to grow deeper in your knowledge and love of Christ, that he may reveal to you the passion, the purpose that he has made you for. Let me pray for us. God, I thank you so much for Jerald and for Hayley and for John. I thank you for the ways that you're working through them in their careers, through them and their restaurants, the way they bless so many people by the way they lead out. God, I thank you for their humility. I thank you for their firmness in how you have created them and who you have created them to be. I thank you for their faithfulness to you, their faithfulness to their community and to this church as well. And God, I pray tonight for that person who is struggling with their calling. Wondering, God, what have you made me to do? God, how do I find a way to use the gifts that you have given me faithfully? God, I pray that as that person grows deeper in their love and relationship with you, that you will open up pathways, that you will open up steps, that you will open up opportunities and jobs, that they can step out in obedience, and that your blessing will be awaiting them along the path. And God, now as we prepare to come to your table, we thank you that King Jesus came and had that passion for a relationship with us, that was willing to go to a cross and die and be buried and raise again for the forgiveness of all of our sins. And God, we confess tonight that we are sinners. That too often we have chased a dream based in money, based in fame, based in fortune, and not based on what you have called us to, God. Forgive us of those types of sins and all the other things that we do. that don't bring honor to you. And we thank you that by the perfect blood of Jesus Christ, we have forgiveness forever.